And news. Today, I'm covering stories that I might have missed in the last few weeks. Um, the didn't get a lot of pushback for my video from last week, and this week I think I've been vindicated. And let's take a look. Let's take a look at the stories. This is actually not related to the video from last week, but we'll just I'll just read these stories off, and then I'll comment as necessary on referring back to last week. So on August 31st, a LMNOP show performance was scheduled to take place as part of an event organized by the local Catholic parish with the approval of the diocese in Italy. At 5 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, Bishop Ario Castellucci, who leads both the Archdiocese of Modena, Nonantola, and the Diocese of Carpi, Italy, was scheduled to celebrate Mass in the Multiverse Park. Then at 6:30 p.m. a drag show performance was scheduled to take place alongside other acts, including bike displays and food stalls. There was confusion as to whether or not the event actually took place, as the diocese removed the advertisement some places but not others. The fact that it was scheduled just kind of goes to show how degenerate these bishops have become, or at least the people planning the events. All right, getting back to bishop promotions. Tuesday. So Pope Leo appointed Father Ralph O'Donnell from the Archdiocese of Omaha, Nebraska, as the next Bishop of Jefferson City, Missouri. Bishop-elect O'Donnell, age 55, again, he'll be bishop for 20 years, has been a priest for 28 years and currently serves as the pastor of St. Margaret Mary Church in Omaha. O'Donnell replaces Biden Bishop Sean McKnight. O'Donnell is currently listed as a board member of Catholic Charities of Omaha. He holds a bachelor's degree in religion from Conception Seminary College and a Master of Divinity from the University of St. Mary of the Lake in Mundelein, Illinois. So another Chicago connection. He was executive director of the Secretariat for Clergy, Consecrated Life, and Vocations at the USCCB from 2015 to 2019. So he's very well connected, and this is another appointment. You can see where things are going. Maybe a little bit less controversial, but again, very much in the thick of things, as you can see from the USCCB and his Chicago connection. All right. And speaking of Chicago and elsewhere, there is an audio recording from the USCCB. No, sorry about that. There is an audio recording from the Association of United States Catholic Priests Conference. This was posted by Lepanto Institute, Michael Hitchborn. It's so disgusting that I'm not going to discuss it. There is a link available in the video description, but let's just say it takes perv priests to the next level. And apparently when a priest was speaking about this, there were bishops in the audience, and do they agree? I think it was Bishop Stowe and Bishop Wester. Do they agree? Yeah. So that's just an open question. Keep that in mind if you decide to read that. But yeah, pretty ridiculous perv priests. Okay. So St. Moses the Black Parish in Detroit posted this on their, well, it would be the Archdiocese of Detroit's website. It was posted in regards to the parish St. Moses the Black in Detroit. This was August 31st, so it was yesterday. I don't know if there's a video available online or not. I looked late yesterday and didn't see it. I don't know. Come be inspired by gospel and jazz music, which draws upon the people's hearts and spirits. The musical setting for the Holy Mass will honor the culture and history of jazz in Detroit. This event is an example of our Catholic faith bringing richness to all areas of our lives. So they're doing a jazz mass, as if you couldn't get more ridiculous. Um, Weisenberger is banning Latin masses, but the archdiocese is promoting a jazz mass. That's pretty ridiculous. Okay, but it just goes to show what his priorities are. Now, I did hear that someone's theory. This is just a theory, but someone said that Weisenberger is intentionally trying to destroy the archdiocese, which makes sense because considering all the quick moves he's making, it's not promoting the Catholic faith in any way. So, he's trying to close the seminary is basically the theory. And if if anyone does go to seminary at Sacred Heart in Detroit, you probably shouldn't go back, especially this year. It's just not a good idea. It sounds like it's a toxic environment under a rotten bishop, one that's not interested in promoting the Catholic faith. But the jazz mass, I did see there was a parish, I think it was in Chicago, and on the steps to the church they had a jazz music, which it's outside the church. I mean, it's not a mass. It's just a concert outside the church, and I don't know. I don't really have much of a problem with that. But having a jazz mass it's just it's the definition of New Pentecost or synodality or all those Vatican II buzzwords. So anyway, all right, an Anglican priestess who is in a civil marriage to a woman received the Holy Eucharist after dipping the host in the blood of Christ during a recent Mass in Mexico, which the blood of Christ should be in quotes because there's a question regarding that. Throughout the liturgy, she stood alongside a Catholic bishop and appeared to concelebrate the liturgy. So this woman was a Canadian, Emily Teresa Smith. She came down to Mexico for a Mass on August 26th with Bishop Emeritus Raul Vera Lopez. He's a Dominican, at the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Saltillo. So it wasn't the actual Guadalupe church, but it's one of the shrines that was named after Our Lady of Guadalupe. So people are actually wondering whether this was a valid Mass or not, just because the fact that the woman was concelebrating the liturgy. But couldn't he have gotten a random woman to concelebrate rather than some random woman from Canada? I don't know. There's probably not a lot of Anglicans in Mexico, but you could find any woman on the street, and the concelebration would be just as valid. So this. This is, but unfortunately, this is seemingly increasingly common amongst the modernists. And I know that there's a increased push, like the laity are becoming more and more educated, and they're seeing this egregious liturgical abuse. I don't even know if I'd call it liturgical abuse. I mean, you have to question the validity of the Mass. I mean, I don't know. It's pretty bad, but obviously, if you're watching this video, you know that you can walk out and don't go back. In fact, don't even go there in the first place. Find a Latin Mass. All right. Oh, okay. So my big news is James Martin S.J., but before that, I'll talk about this story. So, why Slim Jim is in Rome, right? There's the LMNOP pilgrimage for the Jubilee, which, by the way, the SSPX visited, and there were lots of attendees at the SSPX pilgrimage. It was listed on the Vatican's website, and after the pilgrimage, the Vatican removed it from their website. I guess they didn't really want that publicity. Bishop Francesco Savino of Cassino Oggiano, the vice president of the Italian Bishops' Conference, so he's the vice president of the Italian Bishops' Conference, will preside over the Eucharist in the Jesuits' Church Il Gesù in Rome for the for the LMNOP pilgrimage to St. Peter's Basilica on September 6th. Of course, it's going to be a Jesuit. Well, I mean, they'd call it a faith community. St. Ignatius of Loyola is buried in the church. When asked about this event, Savino told a website on August 15th that no one is excluded from the Eucharist. He said, "The bread broken on the altar knows no barriers of birth, language, social condition, or life path. The Eucharist is a welcoming womb, not a rejecting fence. It is a home with doors always open where the cornerstone is unconditional love." He believes that such a Eucharist is not just a liturgical celebration, but a prophetic act, a sign announcing to the world that in the kingdom of God, everyone is a son or daughter gathered at the same table. Weird how he only used two genders, but I'm sure he didn't think about that. He said the Eucharist is not a question of welcoming someone into the house of the Lord, but of recognizing that all are already its inhabitants by full right. He added that the Eucharist is not a reward reserved for the few. This is the common modernist quote. Not a reward reserved for the few, but the bread of communion that restores the scattered human family. So this guy, this would be why men don't become seminarians. Because of bishops like this. Because of fruity bishops like this. And he's leading the LMNOP pilgrimage. Wonder what his identity is. Just a thought, you know? I mean, I wonder. I don't know that I'll get that answer, but yeah. All right, so Pope Leo is meeting with some really rotten characters. So on August 28th, he received the Argentina-born Dominican Sister Lucia Caram, who lives in Spain. She was a friend of Pope Francis and an enemy of the faith. In September 23, she said, "I would be in favor of LMNOPs getting married in the church because God always blesses love." So that tells you all you need to know. And I think Leo is very deliberate about what he does. And so meeting with these rotten characters, it's really problematic. I mean, you know, I don't know. And he met with Cardinal Burke, though, so everything's great, right? And today, he met with Slim Jim Martin, James Martin S.J. How does he always get to meet with the popes? Francis didn't really like him. Apparently, that's what the Pope-splainer says. The Pope-splainers, and you know, the Pope-splainers, you're not doing the Catholic faith any favors. It's seriously, I mean, it's honestly pathetic. Calling things for what they are. You know, you just got to call it out when you see it. And Leo could turn around and become a decent pope, but as of right now, he's headed down the same course as Francis. He's trying to be the next Francis, and he said that publicly. He said that. So I'm taking him at his word. I'm taking James Martin S.J. at his word. And guess what? No one has ever proven him wrong. No one has ever proven James Martin wrong. He's met with Pope Francis several times. Pope Francis sent him handwritten letters saying that he supported his ministry. And I'm taking him at his word. Pope Francis has never had, I guess, in the past, Pope Francis never made any corrections to what James Martin said. And so you have to go with, if there's two people that have this story, and one person shares their side of the story and the other one does not, then you got to go with the one who shared their side of the story. That's just how it works. Okay, so we had an audience today with Pope Leo, and Martin wrote on Twitter, or X. He said, I was honored and grateful to meet with the Holy Father this morning in an audience in the Apostolic Palace and moved to hear the same message I heard from Pope Francis on LMNOPQ Catholics, which is one of openness and welcome. I found Pope Leo to be serene, joyful, and encouraging. For me, it was a deeply consoling meeting. Please pray for the Holy Father. And then Reuters.com interviewed him, and he said that the meeting with Leo lasted about a half hour. And he said, Leo wants everyone in the church to feel welcome. His approach to LMNOPQ Catholics is a continuation of Pope Francis' legacy, which Leo himself said. So the Pope's splainers are doing the church a very big disservice. And so is Pope Leo. Because Martin is a heretic. And a modernist. He blessed LMNOP. He publicly posted blessings of LMNOP couples. He encourages LMNOP activity. It's really a rotten. It's really rotten what he's doing. And of course, I don't know if Pope Leo watched Martin's podcast. I bet he didn't. Some of his YouTube interviews with non-Catholics who were talking about how much they like Pope Francis because, he preached a message that wasn't Catholic, and it's just sad that. Now here's the thing. Martin posted this, and if any of it is incorrect, then I expect the Vatican will correct it. They'll change they'll make the correction. They'll say that Martin did not, they'll say what, I don't know. They'll say what they need to say to make the correction, but I'm not expecting any correction. I'm not expecting any statement from the Vatican. Leo is very deliberate about what he says. So that's that. Let's see, hold fast. Thanks for commenting. I was really hoping Leo wouldn't go full Francis, but here we are already. He made that clear whenever he was elected Pope, and people like myself, they were saying, okay, let's see, I don't really like it, but let's see what happens. And this is what happens. This is what's happening. And if you watch the video from last week, that's exactly what it is. He's going to be he's going to be a little less radical than Francis, a lot nicer to people, and so people aren't going to be as quick to condemn him. People aren't going to be, Taylor Marshall. What are Taylor Marshall and Michael Matt going to say? I think Michael Matt's already trying to go into Pope Splainer mode, and Trad Inc. is what it's called. Avoiding Babylon hasn't really commented on it either. They're saying, oh, give him some time. If we keep our mouth shut, maybe our mass won't be cracked down on or something. Come on, give it a rest. Call it out for what it is. This is modernism. We're getting bad bishops. Maybe not as bad as what Francis appointed, but they're not. These bishops, have you been excited about any single bishop that Leo has appointed? Think about it. Any bishop, any single bishop. Let me know in the comments, because I'm not. And most of them are Fiducius Supplicans bishops. They're Amoris Laetitia bishops, and that's rotten. That's the crisis. They're getting worse, not better. And even if they're better than what Francis appointed, we were spoiled. Or not spoiled, but Um, it was you didn't have to have very much common sense to see that Francis bishops were terrible, and especially under Prevost, they were awful. They were rotten, compromised. Many of them supported LMNOP activity. You didn't have to be smart. You could be a bump on the log and say, "Oh, okay, that guy's not preaching the Catholic faith." And the new bishops, "Oh, okay, there's huge red flags with these new bishops." And now with Leo, you got to dig a little bit, but you find the problems pretty quickly. And maybe it'll even out a little bit. Maybe he'll appoint a conservative while he appoints a far leftist, at the same time. And, the Pope's planners will say, "Oh, this is so based." Well, um, you know, and to not take Slim Jim Martin at his word, he was good friends with Pope Francis. He basically had Francis's number on speed dial. Every time Martin went to Rome, he met with Francis, and he hung out and took a photo and posted it and said, "Francis supports everything I do," and that was that. To say that Martin is lying is a massive accusation against Martin. It also is it also undermines the integrity of Francis. I believe Martin. I believe him in this case. I don't believe his theology. I actually reject it because I'm Catholic. But I think Martin is being honest here. And until Leo corrects it, I'm going forward with that assumption until Leo corrects it. I think that's the charitable thing to do, right? Matrix. Leo is Francis 2.0. And what is 2.0? It's a better version, right? So he's not going to call seminarians and young priests. What names did he call them? It wasn't just rigid. He would just insult them all the time. He never had anything good to say about young priests. I hope he doesn't reverse TC because otherwise that's going to drag things out. Well, that's what I think makes Leo dangerous, is because I think he'll do just enough to make people happy. What does it mean to reverse TC? I guess that's kind of a philosophical question, like a rhetorical question, I guess you would say. It's time this was accelerated. Because I guess you have to. That brings up a question. I do think that he's going to do something about the Latin Mass to, I guess, endear himself to traditionalists. Although it seems as though, especially for Trad Inc., if it even exists, it seems for Trad Inc., all you have to do to endear yourself to them is just to not be Francis. That's not hard to do because there's only one Francis, and the guy that came after him was going to be a lot nicer. I mean, even I don't know about Parolin. I don't know if Parolin would have been as much of a jerk or not. Yeah, that's tough to think about, but reversing TC. So I guess. Now, I do think he's going to do something to endear himself to the Latin Mass attendees. If he reverses TC, he'll have the meeting out of his hand. Oh yeah, I do think he'll do something. He's not going to reverse TC, but he's going to do something to make the pill easier to swallow, in a sense, I guess. If you kind of understand what I'm saying. Like, he'll basically, and what Brett said last week was that he might leave it up to bishops to enforce TC. So he's not going to do anything cracking down on Latin masses. And right now, TC it's basically up to the bishops right now to enforce it, and they can appeal to the Vatican if they want. but then they can also leave things be in their diocese. So like Strickland wouldn't have gotten removed for that. At least I don't think. He says that his removal was due to one of the biggest reasons was because he refused to cancel the Latin Mass, the diocesan masses in his diocese. And that's what got him removed. And that's what actually got Vasquez a promotion. Because Vasquez took over, he was temporarily covering the diocese of Tyler. And he canceled the Latin Masses. That was his parting act right before a new bishop was appointed. He was probably told to do that, and he did it. And because he did, he was promoted. That got him a promotion in the Francis Church, which is absolutely pathetic. But at this point, someone like Archbishop Corleone would he would be fine because he's just going to leave things as is, and the Pope's not going to say anything about it. And on the flip side, someone like Weisenberger, Martin from Charlotte, they're just going to go on and do what they're going to do, and the Pope's not going to say anything about it. So he's just going to leave things as is. That's a possibility. I don't think we're going to get restrictions removed. I mean, if you're looking at restrictions, okay, look at the Institute of Christ the King in Chicago. How Supich suspended their faculties because they refused to disobey their constitutions by celebrating the Novus Ordo on the first Sunday of each month. And now they're not allowed to have public masses. They're not permitted to administer the sacraments. So, and again, that's lingering out there. Now, when they do have an audience with Pope Leo, you want to bet that's going to come up? That's probably a topic that's going to come up. And Leo's from Chicago. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. Is it going to take out his buddy Supich? Or is he just going to wait till Supich retires and then make the change? You think we are still safe in the Byzantine Rite. Hopefully they don't mess with that. Well, Leo's first day, one of his first audiences was with a group of Byzantines, and he said, I encourage you to keep your traditions. So, tradition is fine. As far as the popes are concerned, even Francis was like this too. In Vatican II, from the Vatican II popes, they were always fine with tradition as long as it wasn't the Roman Rite. They didn't like the traditions of the Roman Rite. They wanted to upend those. But when it came to other rites, keep your traditions. In fact, we're strongly encouraging you to keep your traditions. And I think the Maronites didn't do that. They have their own variation of the Novus Ordo, but most of the other Eastern rites kept their traditions for the most part. There's some modernists. You got to be careful about modernism in the East. And for the most part, they're keeping their traditions. I think like everyone else, they do on paper. The TLM will be allowed, but in reality, they'll keep the boot on the neck. No, I think, I don't know, it might be up to bishops. And even if, Leo's not going to wipe out really any of the horrible things that Francis did. I'd be really surprised if he did. But I don't think he's going to actively attempt to persecute the Latin Mass. I just think I think he's just going to leave it as is. He doesn't want to disturb the Francis legacy, which is just rotten errors, terrible errors, hostility, conflict. That's the Francis legacy. and he doesn't want to disturb that. Although a lot of the super obedient trads really like him. He dresses like a pope. That's all we got so far. And sorry to point it out. And if he sees this video, he won't. But if he sees this video, we're not going to get our mass back. But we weren't anyway. So, yeah. I mean, at the Vatican level, they will issue pro-TLM noises, but ensure to snuff it out in practice at the local levels. Well, the bishops are doing a good enough job at that. And, the lay people, there are a few people protesting in Detroit, but you know what's going to happen? Nothing. Eventually they'll fizzle out, and they'll go their own separate ways. And we need resistance. This is evil. This isn't just, oh, well, I'll just go to a really, really reverent Novus Ordo. No. That's unacceptable. We cannot do that. You have to let your bishop know this is an offense against the Catholic faith. This is an offense against the Roman Rite. We're not going away. Find the sacraments at the SSPX, where the bishops can't snuff them out. In Charlotte, the SSPX this week, I think this week and next week, they're expanding their daily mass schedule. Probably in a shrewd, I guess you would call it, marketing effort to let Catholics know we're here. Because Bishop Martin is not. He hates your guts. And what are you going to do about it? He thinks you'll fall in line. You'll fall in line and you'll give your money. Whenever there's jerks like that out there, you can't let that slide. That's you cannot donate your money. And so here's another news item. The Charlotte Latin Mass Twitter page posted that the Latin Mass priest met with Martin last week at some I think it was late last week, and they had a discussion. And the Latin Mass priests, they're diocesan priests, they're dual rite priests, but Novus Ordo and Latin Mass, dual rite, So they had this meeting, and the priest came away with nothing. So they didn't get anything out of it. It was just like, all right, well, your end date is, I believe it's October. I want to say the beginning of October. And right now we're in September, so 1 month. You know how Martin extended his crackdown of the Latin Masses until, I believe it's October 1st. So we have 1 month. And that is, people said, oh, he got a call from the Vatican. Well, the Vatican has 1 month to figure it out. Will it be on the exaltation of the Holy Cross? If there's something that comes out in the exaltation of the Holy Cross, that's fine. If we get a Summorum Pontificum, if that's all we get out of Leo, I'm fine with that. That's all. That's what we got out of Benedict. There were some decent bishops out of Benedict too. I mean, don't get me wrong. But yeah, if that's all we can get out of Leo is Summorum Pontificum. Anything less than Summorum Pontificum, I'm going to be disappointed. And doing nothing is also an option. Like, we could get nothing, and then nothing will happen, and that'll be that. And then, based on Traditionis Custodes, no new priests are allowed to say the Latin Mass. So, or at least I think they had to request it. I think bishops had to submit a request to the Vatican, and the Vatican declined every single request. And so the bishops don't even request it from the Vatican. I think that's how it worked. But basically, not basically, no new priests ordained after Traditionis Custodes were allowed to say the Latin Mass. And so right now, what are we going on? Is it 4 years? I think it might be 4. But anyway, so all those priests aren't allowed to say the Latin Mass. And as new priests are ordained and diocesan communities, some of these priests are going to retire. It's not just young priests saying the Latin Mass. There's a lot of young priests that are interested in it, but it's not just young priests that say the Latin Mass. And as these priests retire, who's going to replace them? Because there's no one who's allowed to say it. And the bishops won't request permission or they won't grant it. So yeah, they're not going to be replaced. So these diocesan communities are going to be shut down. And so all that's going to be left is the Institute of Christ the King and the FSSP and the SSPX. But anyway, Novus Ordo Church has written teachings saying one thing, but in practice allows bishops to ignore and openly contradict said teachings while disciplining any bishop who promotes Catholic teaching. Yeah, I don't know that Leo's necessarily... I think it's going to be... I think there's going to be a little bit more anarchy, honestly, under Leo. Because the bad bishops are going to be able to do bad things, and the good bishops are going to be able to do good things. And that's that. Now, Bishop... I did see a LifeSite News article today. I didn't talk about it. Bishop Fernandez from Columbus, Ohio, who likes the Latin Mass. And he actually was raised, he said his father was disgusted by the liturgical abuse that he saw. And so his father took him to Latin Masses occasionally as a kid. And, there's a bishop who's friendly with the Latin Mass, and you compare him to Weisenberger, who hates it and seemingly hates anything that resembles Catholicism. And yeah, you're going to get a lot of anarchy, basically. Like, the bishops can do whatever they want. And I think, but you're going to see, the bad bishops, they're going to have less seminarians. There's going to be less enthusiasm in their diocese. And good ones, they're going to have more seminarians. And they're going to have more Catholic stuff. And it's going to be growing. So... eventually Leo's going to be faced with the reality that modernism is failing miserably. Francis didn't seem to care at all. But if Leo cares, then maybe we'll see a change. But that's going to be a long time down the road. And I predicted that Leo is going to live 20 years. I mean, he's probably going to have a 20-year papacy. So he's going to have time to think about these things. He's going to have time to see these things. And then he's going to react. How's he going to react? What's he going to do? And we can only hope that we're going to see an upswing in... we are seeing an upswing in tradition, but we can only hope that we'll see an upswing in the offering of Latin Masses. What to do to survive in the meantime? Back to 1957. Well, you can't go wrong at the SSPX. Eastern rites are okay. Just watch for modernism, but I've met a number of really good Eastern Rite priests. If you have a Latin Mass, FSSP or Institute's pretty solid. Leo will do what he's done all his life and got elected for a lifelong fence sitter. Well, there is a big shift in the clergy too. Like, modernist heretics are now getting jobs at universities and not entering the priesthood. Actually, they haven't been for a while, it seems, particularly under Francis, because he really inspired no one. It's the priesthood many decades ago was a good place to hide your LMNOP lifestyle. It was also a good place for good priests. They were a mix of good ones and rotten ones, and the rotten ones are the reason why these dioceses are facing these large lawsuits. But the LMNOPs, that's certainly a problem there. And of course, the LMNOP in our society, you can see the results of that as well. What happened in Minnesota, that I didn't even report on that. I'm sure everyone's done lots of reports on that, so I don't feel the need to discuss that. But the facts are what they are, and you can see how this type of lifestyle is absolutely destroying not only the person's life who chooses it, but but other people's lives as well, if they go really nuts, like some of them do, and it seems like a lot of them tend to do that. But where's I going with this? Yeah, I mean, you can find good places. You just have to find your place, and even I mean, you don't have to live necessarily in a city to even find good priests and good churches. So I don't really have any recommendations, because every situation is different, and I'm not anyone's spiritual director, but you can see the problem. Now figure it out yourself. Well, don't figure it out yourself, but you're gonna have to determine what's the best thing for you to do. And obviously, traditional Catholic books, anything written prior to 1960, they're usually pretty good. So, especially books written by traditional saints. I mean, I'm finishing up reading through St. Francis de Sales' Introduction to the Devout Life. It's absolutely fantastic. I'll do a book review on it at some point. Just books like that, you can't go wrong. So, yeah, you need to do what's best. You need to do what's best for your own soul, and figure it out from there. Hopefully, with the help of a traditional priest. So, all right. Well, this has been good group chat. Group chat. No, I'm showing my age at this point. Good live chat. I appreciate everyone tuning in and commenting. And I see some people have they have like fan stickers or something near their names. I actually don't understand what any of this means, but there's spammers that comment on my videos, and they get these comment stickers, and I don't know why. And so I actually remove them. But you guys aren't spammers, the ones that are commenting today. I removed a few of the spam comments, but some of you guys aren't spammers. I appreciate that. I appreciate real people commenting on my videos. That's very nice. Oh, here's another one. Douay Rheims Bible. Oh, okay. There's yeah. Douay Rheims Bible, Catechism of the Council of Trent, 1817 Code of Canon Law. That's all good material. I would say Code of Canon Law. I don't know. If you're looking to read something exciting, probably not canon law. And certain parts of the Bible aren't the most exciting either, especially when you get to the genealogy. I think in the newer Bibles, it's called Chronicles. I forget what it's called in the Douay Rheims, but there's 9 chapters of genealogy. That's really boring. 1917. Okay, yeah. So lots of good stuff. I've done a show on books. I actually have a lot of book reviews in my videos if you wanted to browse through those. And they're very short. I try to make them short, but I also try to highlight these books, because I don't see a lot of book reviews on YouTube. A lot of Catholic book reviews on YouTube, and I think it's just a good practice. Even if you're spending, like 5-10 minutes reading a day, you can really get through some good stuff. So I'd highly encourage that kind of stuff. Lots of books, especially the traditional books, lots of them are available for ebook download. Download them in PDF format if that's something you're into. I'm not particularly a huge fan of that, but if it's saving me 30 bucks from buying the new book, I'll do that. Um, yeah, the Council of Trent, that's kind of dry, but it's not actually. Oh, the Catechism of Trent. Yeah, that's not very long. It's not hard to read through. It's pretty good. I read the Canons and Decrees of the Council of Trent. That's dry. There is some interesting notes in there though, but it's not that's not very long either. So, Lives of the Saints definitely recommend. I've read lots of Lives of the Saints, and it just doesn't get old. There's so many saints. Not the new ones, but even the old ones. There's so many traditional saints. Lots of material out there. Okay, this has been a long show today, but definitely glad for the comments, the interactions. Until next time, everyone, thank you so much for watching. We are the laity, and we will not be silent.